I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. Today I'm talking to Jesse Ghoman, who leads a fast growing church in Charleston, South Carolina. I'll talk to him and his wife, Alexandra, about how he got there and what's working to help grow the church. All this and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. I want to give a shout out to Shiva Murthy in India. Shiva messaged me recently that he read my new book, The 10X Christian. And what he wrote is he said, "Hey, absolutely love the 10X Christian. Thank you so much. And you should know that someone halfway around the world is so convicted by this. Love you, bro." And I was just so encouraged to get that message. Thank you so much, Shiva. I met Shiva and his wife, K2, in 2017 when we visited India on a speaking trip. And I've actually had Shiva on the show and interviewed him and his work there in northern India. So thank you so much, Shiva. And for you, if you're listening today, I'd like to ask you to go to robskinner.com and get a copy of my book. You can get it there or you can get it on Amazon. Read it and please review it. Thank you so much. Jesse, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here. Alexandra is with me. She's sliding into view right here. We're hopefully getting our baby to sleep. There might be a little bit of background noise there, but
Real life.
yeah, that's our
No
real life.
problem
But
at all.
we're so
That's
happy to
right.
join you.
That's right. It's really great to have you guys on the program. And let me just start off by this question. How'd you guys become Christians?
Well, I can go first. So my parents, they brought me to church growing up. My parents were converted, kind of in the same group as your wife in Boston as college students back in the 80s. And I grew up. I was born and raised in Boston, and I actually was baptized. I made the decision to get baptized when I was 12 years old. I was just about
Wow.
to turn 13. I had just gone to my first Christian summer camp, the teen camp, and I was really earnest, man. I really sometimes it's crazy now that I'm 37 thinking back when I meet 12-year-olds, but I really meant it, and I was really earnest about following Jesus. But I'll tell you what, I had no idea in a lot of ways what it really meant to follow Jesus at 12. I knew, when they counted the cost with me, what if this happens? But, shortly thereafter getting baptized, my whole high school years was kind of like a lot of my friends stopping going to church,
Yeah.
changing the course of their life. And I think, from the time I was 12 all the way through 17, 18 years old, graduating high school, God was just really teaching me, this is what you signed up for. This is
Yeah.
what it really means to make Jesus Lord of your life. And so, yeah, those are my teenage years. That was how I became a disciple.
Yeah, I became a Christian when I was 14. Jesse has always he's very pure-hearted. Apparently, it took me a little longer. I'm just kidding. No, it's funny. I remember, I do think at the time it was a lot more, a lot younger of teenagers were becoming Christians in our fellowship back then. And I remember almost getting baptized when I was 13. And the day before I was supposed to get baptized, I remember we were doing a Bible study with the women who had been studying with me. And we were talking about the next day and my baptism. And all of a sudden, it was like every doubt that I had ever had for my
Gotcha.
entire life hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, I can't do this.
Right.
And that moment was like, I don't even think the Bible's the word of God. I don't know if I believe in Jesus. Like, it was like every doubt that I'd ever kind of held on to exploded, thankfully, before I got baptized. And I really spent the next year kind of grappling with a lot of just faith questions. So eventually, kind of worked through a lot of my doubts and read a lot of apologetics things, which is now obviously also very hysterical to imagine a 13-year-old
Yeah.
old like reading apologetics books, but that's what I was doing. And I ended up getting baptized this summer after 8th grade. And
Wow.
yeah,
That's great. Okay, so
yeah,
your dad is really special in my mind and in kind of a very special figure in our family of churches, Sam Lang. And I've heard him talk about you. I've read about you. I understand that you are the
Yeah.
baby of all the kids, right? You're the young one.
yes, very
Isn't that
much.
right?
Yep, the
Okay.
4th.
Yeah. And I was sharing, before the interview that when we planted a church in Ashland, Oregon, I really wanted help because I had these grade school kids that I was raising. I had 3 kids, they were all in grade school, and, we had a church of, like at that point, it was, like, 8 people, and we'd started with 2, like, quadrupled, so we
Yeah.
were fired up, but anyway, I I am like, "Who knows how to disciple me on raising boys, because my 2 boys were first, and then I had a girl. I'm like, a lot of the people that I had known just had girls, so I'm like, "Sam Lang, I know he's got boys." And so, I didn't know Sam personally, I'd never met him, but I'd read his books, and so I started an email campaign, and I would email him, like, every month, and first, no response, and
That's
then, like, "Hey,
amazing.
bro," and then I just wore him down. I mean, seriously, it took me about a year, and I finally got him to come out for a married family retreat, and it was just so tiny and just really small, but I had it all planned out. I took him out on a motorcycle trail ride because he had mentioned how he had a Harley Davidson and a
Oh, yeah.
motorcycle.
That's how
That's
you
the
get
way you
him.
get them right there.
That was
I
the way to
know,
his heart, the
I
motorcycle.
know. We just had a great
I
time in
love
Southern
that.
Oregon trail riding, had a great memory with your dad, so really love him. I'm so sorry about his passing recently. It was a real loss for the kingdom.
Oh,
How'd you guys meet?
yes.
Well, we
Mm,
had some mutual friends, so her older sister grew up childhood best friends with my campus minister's wife, Melissa, and they set us up at a conference, but essentially, I totally chickened out at this conference,
yep.
and, I was off my game, man, and I chickened out, but I kept having this thought in my mind. I kept thinking about her afterwards, and I was going down to Atlanta to visit a dear friend of mine, Scott Malutnock, who had been in a motorcycle accident, and I was gonna go spend a week with him, and I just kept thinking, like, "No regrets." Like, "You've gotta figure out a way to get up to Athens, Georgia, and take her on a date," and so,
Hmm.
I'm so glad I did, I mean, and so for anybody out there, just I think no regrets.
Shoot your shot. Yep.
That's the first lesson right there, no regrets, but,
Yeah, and I knew he was supposed to ask me out at this conference, and so then I was like, "What's wrong with this dude? Like, why
right,
did he chicken out and not ask
yeah.
me?" But, it all worked out, and,
That's the story of our relationship. I redeemed myself. You gotta redeem
he
There
yourself.
you
big
go.
redemption
You
arc.
gotta have grace and you
Yes,
gotta redeem
it
yourself,
was
so
great. Yeah,
That's great.
that's
Well,
right.
okay, so what was it what attracted you guys? What did you like about Jesse when you first met him?
So, I
I
remember
didn't know the
thinking
conversation was gonna be like this.
I
This
know,
is
I love
great.
it. So I remember thinking when I was in my early 20s that at the time I was convinced that men could be in 3 categories and they could only be 2 of the 3, okay? So, attractive, spiritual, and fun. And I was convinced that you could only find 2 of the 3. And so and then I met Jesse and I knew I had seen his picture, so I was like, "Okay, he's attractive, check." And I was like, "If Melissa's setting me up with him, he must be spiritual." So I was like, "He's gonna be a total dud, boring." But then we spent time together and I was like, "Oh, he's interesting too. He's fun," and we had a lot in common. And of course, like, I think um, spiritually just aligned on so many things and cared about the same things. And I wasn't as sure when we met about ministry at the time. I was like thinking I wanted to pursue it, but I wasn't gung ho for it. So that was definitely but then I felt very inspired by him and was like, oh, well, wait, maybe I do want to do ministry.
There you go.
Because
There
I
you
think
go.
his faith is very like amazing to me. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, that would be it.
Jesse, what'd you like about Alexandra?
Well, I come from a lot of brokenness in my family, in my life, in our kinda where we come from, And I remember before I was even old enough to really pray for this, I used to hope in my heart, God, I just hope one day I could marry a girl that just comes from a great, awesome family. And, it blew my mind when I met her. I honestly didn't know too much about her dad. I had read one of his books, and then I started to, hear and learn just about where she comes from and the character that was instilled in her. I felt like whenever I was around her, whenever I was with her, I just felt that. I felt that security. I felt that warmth. I felt that just safety. And then there was this other side to her that I was just so inspired by. I used to go out and try to share my faith with all these different kinds of people and go on campus. But then we went on our first date and she shared her faith with our waitress, which was something that I, wouldn't always do just in my everyday life. I would do it out on the streets or something. And it was so different than me, but I was like so amazed on our first date that she did that. And I just was inspired by her. So it was like this safety thing and this warmth, but also with this like, wow, she inspires me in her faith, how she's living her life. So those are some of the things that attracted me.
Your answer is just very sweet. My answer,
Right.
I'll tell you more sweet things later.
I love what you said.
So when did you guys get married?
We got married in 2012, so we hadn't even known each other for 2 years when we got married, which was crazy. It was I
Okay.
We met my last semester of college. I moved to New York, went in the ministry there. We were long distance. He was
So
in
we dated for a
Boston.
whole year
Yeah,
I
we
was so
were
glad that she moved to New York City because it's a 4-hour bus ride,
Yes.
and, like, every other weekend,
He would
we
take
would
the bus after Devo,
yeah.
make it to New York, we'd
Maybe we
spend the
just
day
spend the day on
together,
Saturday
and
because
then he'd book it back for church the next day.
so we
Oh my
kinda
gosh,
fell in
that's
love in New York
commitment.
City, just,
Yeah,
every couple weekends hanging out in the city together, getting to know each other, and that was a whole year, and then she moved to Boston after that, and
mhm,
we got engaged.
yep.
That's that's not a bad place to fall in love is in the city, New York
It was a
City.
No.
great place to fall in love, highly recommend.
That's great. Fantastic. Okay, so you guys got married 2012, so you've been married 13 years. Can you just talk a little bit about where you've been since that time? Kinda just give me a 2-minute update on, like, where you've been and what's happened
Yeah.
since that time
Well, we
when you
had an
got to Charleston.
amazing opportunity. Yeah, so, the way we got to Charleston, we had an amazing opportunity when she moved to Boston. Essentially, almost immediately, we started working as college ministers in downtown Boston, and that was where I went to school. I went to, UMass Boston, the most prestigious of all of the downtown Boston
That's
schools.
right.
Hey,
As your
Jesse,
wife knows, that's where the best
that's
of
where
them
my
come
wife
from.
went to school. So she's right there with you.
Exactly.
Really?
That's where I went. You met the Beacons, and so, that's where I went to school, and it was kinda my dream to be able to lead that campus ministry and just work with that
Yeah, it was awesome.
ministry, and so that was something that we ended up doing for it was about, like, 11 years that we worked, maybe going on 12 years that we worked with the downtown Boston campus ministry. And some people have the experience of leading a small ministry and you kind of learn your lessons and you as a minister you grow it and God teaches you things and you get you kind of graduate in just your leadership. And that was not I would not say that was the case for us. We were kind of thrown into a very large ministry and it was just trial and error, mostly failure,
Mostly
just
error.
yeah, mostly error and failure, just trying to figure out how do we reach all of these 250,000 college students in and around the Boston area. But it was amazing. I mean, we lived in the same apartment for 8 years.
Wow.
Never moved, and I mean, we could walk 5 minutes to the hospital where our daughters were born. So then we had 2 girls, and, they were both born in that house, in that apartment, and we just kinda did the same thing for a long time. For about 11, 12 years, we worked with that campus ministry, eventually led that campus ministry in downtown Boston, and just got to work with a lot of different young men and women. And then about 4 years ago, a little over 4.5 years, we moved to Charleston, and we got the opportunity to actually lead a whole church. So now we work with the Charleston Church of Christ, and, we're the lead evangelist and women's ministry leader. That's the role that we serve in now, and this is my first time living outside of Boston. I thought I would I thought I would live forever and be buried in the Boston Commons outside your, house. Only Benjamin Franklin's buried there. They don't just let anybody do that. She moved around her whole life as the child of a preacher, and so big change for me these last few years coming
Right.
down South Carolina.
Yeah, he
Well,
he is now he's gone from being like, you don't in Boston, it's, like, not as normal to, like, wave to your neighbors, and Jesse has become, like, the mayor of our neighborhood, which just cracks me up because when we used to go visit in the South, people would wave at him and he'd be like,
What is
"What?"
what is wrong with
And now
people?
and now he's, like, the initiator of the wave,
It's good.
yeah, it's been good for us to
It
have a
is.
different experience.
that's awesome. I mean, that's been a real culture shock for me. I'm from the West Coast, and
Yes.
it's a little shocking at times. I have to do lessons for people like, "Hey, we gotta be more friendly here on the East Coast because it's just like, hey,
Yes.
guys, put a smile
Yes.
on your face, say hi,
Yep.
Totally, it's such
cashier,
a
please
different
do."
such a world.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, I don't wanna go off on a wild goose chase, but in any case, okay, so why'd you leave Boston? I knew that your mom, you loved it. Why'd you go to Charleston?
Do you want me to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we it was COVID, first of all, so it was during, I feel like so many people that were in the ministry, there was, like, a giant shifting in those few years too, where there was a lot of moving, and we were just at a point where I think we had been doing campus for a long time. The position that we had downtown was kind of changing at that point. Downtown was kind of in downtown Boston, they were shifting how they were doing campus ministry and approaching it. And so there kind of was a choice of did we want to go, to kind of work with a different region in the Boston area, serve differently, or, but then also we heard about this opportunity in Charleston. My entire family is in the South. And so obviously for me, that was very appealing, and then when we came, so we decided to interview. We were like, okay, well, we're making a change. Whatever, either way, we're making a big change in our lives. And so when we came to interview, the things I kept praying for if we were meant to move is that God would make it clear if Charleston was going to be a safe place to land ministry wise, and also if it was going to be inspiring. And pretty much from the jump, when we came to visit, we met our elders and their wives. There's 3 of them, and it was just immediate sense of safety and encouragement and just that bond that you feel right away. But then also what they were wanting us to do was exactly what we felt like God had been preparing us for. The church was already honestly very healthy when we got here. The people that were here before us were amazing and set a great foundation in the church. Obviously, God is the ultimate foundation layer and had done a lot of work for the last 30 years in Charleston. And so we had felt like it was already such a safe and inspiring place to land, but then they were looking for someone to kind of appeal to the next generation. And we felt like, oh, wait, we can't do a lot of things, but we do know how to do that.
Yeah.
And so it just felt like the stars kind of aligned in that way,
Yeah.
and God really made it clear. And then you add on to it that my dad was going through so much, and the idea that we could be a 2-hour drive from him where we could support my parents was just such a kiss from God. We got to be there with him in his last years. I was there when he passed. So many moments that I feel really thankful that God orchestrated it the way that he did. It was really hard to leave the place where Jesse had grown up his whole life, and a place where he had so many deep ministry friendships and relationships. But it's been God has definitely been in the
Yeah.
move for sure.
Yeah, so I think, for any churches out there that are looking to hire young people that are trying to attract young people, that's just a little side note. That was our prayer, was, "God, help us to find somewhere that's safe and inspiring," which I think are 2 almost can seem like opposite opposing things. But I think that's what we were looking for, and, that's just a little side note. Kudos to the Charleston Church of Christ because
The best.
that's what they were selling, that's what they were trying to be, and we were like that's what they still are, and we said, "That's where we wanna be," and so that's just a little side note for churches that are what environment you're trying to create for young ministers coming in.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just dig into the ministry aspect a little bit here. What size was it when you got there? Like how many people were coming on Sundays or more of the membership or
Well, it was coming out of COVID, and so I
okay,
don't know exactly how many were showing up, but we probably had, maybe, like, the membership was about 180 when we arrived, and
okay.
and and that was, a long, hard work to even get there from the just the previous leaders in the church. I mean, there was a lot of growth over about a 10-year period to get to
Mhm.
180.
They had
Yeah,
grown
big time.
Yeah,
tremendously in the previous 10 years.
yep.
And who led it
Yep,
before you
and then
guys?
Lowell and Angie Hoover,
Oh,
who,
the Hoovers.
they've been
Okay.
around a while, and,
Oh, yeah.
missionary heroes
yes, they are, and
themselves.
now they're missionaries again out in
Sicily or
Sicily.
something. That's right. So, okay, so you started basically you had to kind of pull everyone together. Everyone's coming out from their caves and holes in the ground after
Yeah,
COVID.
yeah.
You got
Exactly,
100
precisely.
what okay, I've heard really good news. I talked to Stuart. I know you guys are good friends. He said the church is doing great. How has it grown? What size is it at now 4 years later?
Yeah, so the membership now is about 270 4 years later,
Wow.
and, we had, I think, 3 college students when we first got here. It's not the biggest college town, there's a few universities. I don't think that's necessarily how people view Charleston, but there's some good schools, and the campus has gone from 3 to 30 in the last few years here, and, most of that is people who've, were seeking God and decided, "I wanna get baptized and become a Christian,"
Mhm,
and I think that there's overall just been a big youth revival. There's the church feels very different, and
mhm.
our average attendance on Sundays, is in the building, we probably, have, like, a average of 320, 330 every Sunday, and the
Wow.
craziest part is that includes 100 children. So, from age, 0, little infants, all the way up to teenagers, there's, like, 100 children of members who are there every Sunday that aren't even members themselves. They're just kids that are coming with their parents. And so
That's
it's just
awesome.
a lot of young families, a lot of young marrieds, a lot of youth revival that we've seen, which is, a little different than the numerical growth, but I think everybody really feels that.
Heck yeah, you got a family feel there. Okay, so tell me, like, this is your first shot at it, first time leading your own church, which is great. I think everyone should get that chance to get out on their own and plant a church, be a missionary, which is great. What was your strategy? I mean, that's really great growth in the past 4 years, growing almost 100 disciples. There's so many people listening and go, man, I'd love to see that kind of growth in my church. What was your mindset? What was your philosophy? Give me some bullet points. What were you doing that helped the church to go from good to great?
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to even think about us as great. I feel like God is blessing us, and it's, we're trying to do the best we can, but obviously we have so many other dreams and prayers. When I think about the miracles that God has done these last few years, there's so I've been thinking about you asked me this questions ahead of time. I've been thinking about it because there's so much that I think goes into it.
Mm.
I think the first thing that I would say is what we already talked about with that foundation. I think that our elders and their wives in Charleston are amazing. That would be Ivy and Terry Baird, Dan and Jody Lyle, and Ernest and Lynn Govan. And those are the 3 elders that had been raised up and appointed before we got here, and they were the ones that made the decision, "We wanna hire the Ghomans, and we wanna bring them here." I have this analogy that I use sometimes about, Steve Jobs and Apple, and he was fired by his own board when he was a young whippersnapper, a young dreamer, a young visionary, but there was some stuff he really lacked, some maturity that he needed to gain, and he went out and, you know, did the whole Pixar thing and a number of other ventures, and I think it was 12 years later, his board came back to them, and there was 2 things that were true. Steve Jobs had grown in his leadership, but also the board had grown, and they said, "We're ready for the leader that you are." And I think that's really hard sometimes for leadership teams to do, to go, this is and our elders, what they decided was there's a lot of strengths the church already has, but reaching the next generation taking the church on into the future, raising up more leaders. They said, we are lacking that. And what we may have been lacking in as young leaders, 32
What
years
we
old at the
definitely
time,
were lacking
yeah,
in,
what we were definitely
still
lacking in,
lacking in.
what we needed to learn, what we needed to grow in, they said, "That's okay, we'll fill in the gaps for those other things,
Yeah.
but what they're bringing, that's what we need, that's what we want." And I think that those things oftentimes with young people, with evangelists like myself, especially someone that maybe even I came from a large church. I came from a church in Boston that was over 2,000 members, and that's a very different culture and different feel. All that stuff to me, it can feel and look a little dangerous from afar. And I
Right.
just give so much of the credit to begin with that foundation, with our elders deciding it's it's gonna get on they're gonna stretch us, and it's gonna be uncomfortable, it's gonna be new in some ways, but that's what we want. And I don't think anything that has happened over the last 4 years would have happened if it wasn't for that to begin with.
Yeah.
And so I give them a lot of the credit. That's one of the first things that I always think about. I don't know if you wanna add anything to that, but,
Yeah, I think
um
that's huge. I think, I don't when you ask, like, what was our strategy, I think we are probably, like, not silver bullet type people. Like, I tend to feel like the same things that have worked in the Bible, God will bless them now, and maybe you have to figure out how do you package it, but
yeah.
ultimately, faith, inspiration, loving people, taking care of people, those are the same things that I think worked in Jesus's ministry, and I think those are the same things that work now, and I think it's just making ourselves available to that, and also, like, helping I think and I probably think one of the biggest things we have really worked on within the church as it's gotten larger, and what we're still really working on is that, right, Jesus says, "The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few," and we've tried to really help the church to realize that, like, they can do more and we want them to do more. Like, it's like, we are limited. We have 3 kids. We are young. Even when we moved here, we had so many different life things happen that really, honestly, we were so limited. And I felt like it really made it so obvious that God was the one that was moving and, like, how do we help everyone in the church to kind of find their spot to
Mm.
give and to serve and to find their gifts? And so I think that's been one of my most favorite things in terms of strategy is we've really tried to go, "Hey, these 20 people are doing 15,000 things. How do we multiply those 20 people and make it 50 people that now know how to do more
Right.
stuff?" And that feel confident, and I think that's something that we're always really working on. Even we just had to have 2 services, and so we're literally having to be like, "Hey, we need more of everything." Like, we need more of
Right.
everyone, and I do think engagement breeds ownership, and I think ownership makes people feel like, "This is my church home, and I wanna invite more." Honestly, even with that, when I look at a lot of the growth, a lot of it was conversions and restorations, and those are all awesome, but a lot of it was people moving here that I think were going, "Hey, I wanna live in a place and do life in a place where we can raise our family to love Jesus together." And for whatever reason, not because of Jesse and I, honestly, because of all the amazing families in our church and the elders and the shepherds and the mature disciples, they have made it an appealing place to do life and to
Mhm.
advance the kingdom.
You mentioned some of the difficulties you faced. You guys have both had losses. How'd you navigate that? If you could just share a little bit about some of the challenges that you've gone through, I think that'd be very helpful.
Yeah. I mean, we there has been a lot, like Alexander was saying. Think within the first year that we moved here, there was 3 different, like, pillar members of the church who passed away very unexpectedly, and so I didn't really know how to
You'd
walk with
never done a
families. I'd
funeral
never done a
before.
funeral, and we had 2 funerals in our church building that they're asking me to, do the eulogy and speak to this stuff. Got a lot of help, got a lot of advice.
A lot of advice, yep.
Um, so it started with that, and then my own stepdad back in Boston, who was who was living right down the street from where you live in
Beacon Hill.
Beacon Hill. Um, he passed away unexpectedly. Just kinda, you get a call one day, "Yeah, he's having a little procedure." You get a call the next morning, the doctor's just saying he's not gonna make it. What? Yeah, I hopped
Mm.
on a flight. I didn't make it in time, but I hopped on a flight immediately, um and then even just we were ready to have a 3rd kid and went through 3 different miscarriages very unexpectedly, very early, but there was no explanation for them. It was just kinda one of those things, and so 3 of them in a row. Sitting there with your wife when she's getting an ultrasound and they're saying there's no heartbeat, having to do that
Oh, boy.
again, and then a 3rd time, I was just like, "Lord, I don't know what you want me to do here.
Mm.
I don't know how to get through this," and then on top of it all, her dad is just fading with dementia, and so God blessed us with we have a daughter who may or may not disrupt this call pretty soon here. When she wakes up from her nap, God, he kinda heard our prayers and her dad, we were able to bury him at the end of last year, and so it was in some ways, it was like a long season had ended, but that was a whole season, I would say, for the
3
last
years.
3 plus years that we've been going through, and it feels like
Wow.
that season is maybe at an end.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Pray.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a little bit with the last
Yeah.
kinda simultaneous to all these great things, there's been some really challenging things all along the
Yeah,
way.
I mean, seeing both of our moms become widows, um, his entire family ended up moving to Charleston kind of as a result of a lot of it. I mean,
Yeah,
it was a lot, and, a lot of grief and a lot of, uncertainty for sure.
yeah.
So your mom lives in Charleston now, Jesse?
My mother does, and then my little sister and her family, they also moved here as well,
Mhm.
Wow. Okay, you guys are pretty magnetic.
which is
You
great.
just draw the family. That's a you're gonna be there for a while, I guess.
Yeah, we're very lucky, we're very lucky.
Okay. Well, you guys have deflected a lot of praise, and you guys have given encouragement to your elders and things like that, but what would people in your church say, or what would those elders say that your unique gifts are? What have you brought to the table that's made a difference? What would they
Yeah.
say about you guys?
They would
Yeah,
say that he's an incredible preacher and
amen.
that
Okay.
he is really, really good at Jesse is one of the most willing to take feedback people that I know. He always wants to know, "All right, what do you think? What do you think?" He takes it, but he's also not afraid to, like, quarterback and go, "Okay, here's what the direction." Like, he has a clear point of view too, and deep convictions, deep levels of inspiration. Like, I feel like it's hard for me to get inspired. Jesse can be inspired by a 10-second clip of anything. Like, he can find inspiration in a song, anything. I mean, just day-to-day life, he's inspired,
I
and
loved your sermon I heard a couple weeks ago, that
yeah,
was
he's been
inspiring.
talking about that. Exactly. He's
Thank you.
inspired, and I think being an easily inspired person makes it he knows how to help others find that too, and he's very good at staying focused, making the main thing the main thing. Like, I can be, "Wait, we need to work on this, and we need to work on that," and he's like, "Yeah, but, like, how are we going to help people become Christians? That is our
Mm.
main objective. That's who we're
Right,
meant to be." And I love
right.
that because I think I mean, when you're leading a church, it's so easy to be there's literally always a million problems, there's a million things you could be working on, could be getting better at, and I think very he works very hard to stay focused and stay inspired.
Okay.
And honestly, we do I think probably our superpower is we get a lot of help. Like, we ask for a lot of help. Since we moved here, Tom and Kelly Brown get time with us. All that like, we get with them on Zoom, they come to our church, they spend time with us, we ask them their feedback, they talk with our elders and get the elders' feedback on us, like, we're so I do think getting help is probably one of our main gifts. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's a gift, but I'm really thankful. I have my mom on speed dial, she gives me a lot of women's ministry tips, so
I appreciate all that.
that's my he won't say it about himself, but I can say
Yeah.
it.
Okay.
No, I mean, I think that I really appreciate all that, she was mentioning this earlier about the some of the basics that we came in going. I mean, even when we were interviewing Rob, they were asking us, "So all you've done is led a campus ministry, a college ministry for the last decade plus. What makes you think that you can come and lead a church?"
Fair question.
Very fair question. And good thing I had an answer ready to go in my interview for that, and I talked about people say there's these 10,000 hours rule to become an expert in something, and I said, for 10 years, I've been doing a lot of the same thing, a lot of basic things, and I'm like, "I don't know if I'm at 10,000 hours, I don't know if I'm an expert yet, but maybe I'm getting there in probably 3 things," is what I told them, and I said, "The 3 things that I feel like I've done over and over again with college ministry is I've learned how to convert all different kinds of people." I said, "I
Right.
feel very confident that we could come to Charleston, we could help this church know how do we reach all the different kinds of people in this city." And the second thing is I said, "We know how to inspire people." Because in college ministry, everybody goes home for winter break, and everything that you had going on, all the momentum that you had is now gone. And then
That's
especially in the
right.
summer break, you're just trying to find all the lost sheep, and it's almost like starting a startup company, with all
Twice a
these
year.
young college students. You have to do it, over and over and get everybody pulled back together and give them a vision, and so I felt like God had
Exactly.
really trained us and taught us over the years, how do you really just get to people's hearts and inspire people and give them a vision. And then the third was raising up leaders. In college ministry, you have to raise up leaders over and over and over. Every year, your best people graduate. Your most trusted people, your most experienced, mature people, they graduate. And you got to try to figure out how do you do that with the next class and the next class, kind of like college football or something. And those are the things that we brought. And I think all of those things, I've definitely seen the training that God gave us as college ministers. I had a faith coming in that these are not just campus ministry principles. These
Yeah.
didn't just work because it was campus ministry. I really believe that these things were working because they're Jesus principles. They're
Mhm.
gospel principles. They're things that we see Jesus doing in his ministry in the scriptures. And so let's just try to apply that to now it's not a college ministry. Now it's the city of Charleston. How do we do the same type of thing and go after it with a church, with a city? And it might look a little bit different, but the same principles, the basic principles, like Alexander was talking about, are going to be the same. And God is going to help us to get those breakthroughs. And God is
Yep.
going to help us figure out the way to make that happen. So
That's
those are some of the things
awesome.
I think we brought that might have been new.
That's super, super helpful. Let's just talk that's great. So you're saying you brought 3 things that you've got 10,000 hours or really expertise in, and that's converting anybody you can convert. Secondly, inspiring people and getting people motivated. And then third thing, raising up leaders. Let me just talk a little bit about raising up leaders. Okay, what helps you to raise up leaders? Okay, and this is personal. I mean, we just walked into this situation, the downtown ministry, which you're familiar with. Lots of singles. We've been in charge. We're in charge of like a kind of a central core, back bay, young professional ministry, trying to
Right.
identify, how to pull people together, figure out who the leaders are. What would you do? Give me your advice on what you would do walking into a situation where you've got 40, 50 people and don't know people super well. How do you identify the leaders and start developing an identity and training them?
Mm, yeah, I mean, I think the beginning thing is you can kind of we can jump off back and forth, but I think raising up leaders, it starts with faith. I think that it's so hard when you're building something, and you've know this more than us. You've been there. I'm so inspired by you going back to your hometown in Oregon. I
Mm.
mean, people talk about starting from nothing. Usually, at least you have a team to go with you. You have a couple leaders to rely on, and you're like, "Bam, you are my team. You are my leader. You're my best leader. You're my right." And I remember there was even some folks, that talked about. They said, "Jesse, Alexander, I don't know if I see it. I don't know if I see in Charleston the leaders. Like this plan that you're coming up with. It looks good on paper, but I don't know if people are really." And that was a moment that was a bit like, do we have the faith that God is going to provide the leaders? I was having a prayer time. We were trying to find college ministers. And when I was in Boston, I was always the one people were calling, and they were calling me going, "Do you have anybody you can send me?" And now I was the guy that was calling everybody because I was starting from scratch in Charleston.
Yeah.
Right.
And we were getting rejected, and it was slim pickings. And I remember I had this prayer spot by the Ashley River, and I was just like, "God, where are the leaders?" And then I remembered, "Oh, God, I've seen you do this 100 times."
That's right.
When we thought like, "Oh, what are we gonna do now?" Our seniors just graduated, and year after year, God would some
God
way,
provide.
somehow provide the leaders. I love the story of, when everybody is complaining to Moses, and they're like, wailing in front of their tents and because they don't have any food to eat, and they're like, "We're sick of this manna." And Moses starts losing it, and God, he says, "I want you to go and take." He raises up a bunch more leaders for him. He said, "I want you to take the Levites, and I'm gonna put some of the spirit that's on you in them." And I just
Wow.
think it's so I think that's what we gotta remember, that God is going to provide more leaders. So I think faith that God is gonna do it. God is gonna provide the
Mhm.
people, and it might not be the person that that the world thinks is a leader. It might not be the person that in your nature that you think, "Oh, I see this person as a leader." Sometimes it surprises you because you can't see the roots. You don't always know what's underneath.
That's right.
And God, he's just kinda he provides them, and if you're being inspirational, if you're not putting pressure on people, if you have that just, "Hey, God is gonna move," and, you put a vision out there for people, and your leaders, they rise to it, and
Agree.
they go, "I believe what this guy is saying. I'm ready to buy what this guy is selling. Maybe we can make a difference. Maybe we can change the world. Maybe we can change our city." And you'll find people that will go, "He's selling me something here from the scriptures. And
Mhm.
I think I buy it." And you just got to have faith that that's going to happen, because
Yeah.
when you don't have faith, you don't even try. You
Right.
try other ways. You try to put pressure on people. You try to make it happen.
That never
No,
works.
it doesn't. People,
Not for long.
no, yeah, exactly. It can work for a little while, but would
Yeah.
you add anything to that?
Yeah, it's funny, I think when we first got here, one of the main things we did was we got dinner with so many
Yeah.
people. Just time. I was on the phone with somebody this past week, one of the women, and we were talking. Jesse and I actually are currently working with our pros ministry, which is
Yeah, we're kinda doing the same thing as
a
you.
lot of young marrieds, a lot of young singles. It's a great group. And, the group is growing a lot. And so we're actually trying to figure out, okay, yeah, we need some more leaders. And there's honestly so many amazing people in the ministry. It's almost like, okay, who wants to do this? Because you're all pretty capable. Like, it's such a great group,
Right.
which I think believing in people is so big. Like, actually having that vision, believing that they're there, believing that God has gifted them, and praying that you'll see with God's eyes, I think is always something. God made people gifted. I just need to open my eyes to see it, right? But one of the
Well,
things, so Jesse and I have been trying to have a lot of people in our home and just get time and kind of try to identify, like, okay, who wants this? Who's looking to serve more? Who's got that capacity and that heart and that desire? But I was telling one of the women that she and I get time consistently, and she was like, well, I was saying how I was feeling kind of stretched with time, and she was like, well, do you have to like get dinner and meals with all these women? Like, can't you just like, decide like, hey, can you lead? And I was like, well,
right.
not really in this job. Like, it's so relational. And like,
Yeah,
that's just
Right.
the reality is like, it just takes time
yeah,
to figure out
Yeah.
who those people are and who wants that with you, and who you have that kind of chemistry with, where you guys work well together and you have that vision together. And that's the hard thing, is I think there's faith, but then there's also just no substitute for relational
yeah.
closeness. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we learned when we were with Kevin and Melissa Miller in Boston. Like, Melissa is the most relational
That's one of her
leader.
superpowers for sure.
That is
Yeah.
her superpower.
Definitely.
I mean, she can befriend a snail, and thank goodness for her, cuz she's so loyal, and she will always draw you out. And I think that is one of the biggest things. He brings the faith and the vision, and then I try to bring that relational closeness and go, okay, if you're going to serve a lot, you also got to feel really close. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Right.
It's hard to serve when you don't feel close and
I
connected.
mean, what she's sharing, it makes me think of 2 really, really quick stories, and one of them is there was a when we moved here, a woman in the church who maybe some would at the time would have considered, is she doing okay in her faith? Is she kind of a fringe member of the church? we're coming in, we don't really know, and we just knew we gotta get to know this girl. Alexandra, and she has the same superpower as Melissa, her friend that we were talking about. She has her over the house, and this woman tells us later that she was sitting outside our house contemplating, "Do I go in? Do I not go in? Do I give my heart to these people? And, what do I do?" And wouldn't you know that you fast forward and she runs our entire children's ministry in our church.
Wow. That's
All
awesome.
these 100 kids that are there every Sunday. I remember another guy when we moved here, it started off with me just going, I know there's a saga with this guy. I know there's a lot that he's feeling. And I blocked out like 3 hours and I just said, "Hey, let's go get some time. Let's go sit down. Let's go watch some sports together at a restaurant, and I just wanna hear the whole thing. Give me the whole saga." And I just listened and listened, and, you know, it was the beginning of drawing his heart out and getting to know him and speaking some truth into his life with the scriptures, but just becoming a friend and knowing where he's coming from, and wouldn't you know, this is the guy that runs all of our worship now for our whole church, and
Wow.
yeah,
2 of our
I mean,
closest
there's 2 of
friends.
our closest friends, 2 of our just most giving leaders, and that's just one of the weird things when it comes to raising up leaders. It's like, where are they gonna come from? What's gonna happen? I think if we're walking and living like Jesus, God just kinda provides them, and he identifies them, and he
Mhm.
helps us to somehow raise those people up.
That's awesome. What I hear you saying is, first of all, having faith that God will provide the leaders, just like God provided leaders back in Moses' day. Inspire people, don't coerce people or pressure people. And then use hospitality, really love people and work through kindness and just really be loving. I mean, I have to just say, your mom wrote the book, The Hospitality Handbook. She's it's
She
in the
contributed
blood.
a little.
That's that's pretty impressive. So there's gotta be some, genetics there in the hospitality. That's fantastic. That's super, super helpful. And just the fact what you're saying is it takes time. And I think that's helpful for me in my situation, I'm sure for others as well, just trying to figure out, okay, where the leader's gonna come from, and how am I gonna reach them? But I hear that kindness goes a long ways and really gentleness and patience and vision for people. So that's very helpful. Thank you for that. I want to kind of double back to the whole elder thing. It's not common to find a good working relationship between evangelists and elders. In the 70s,
It's true.
hundreds of evangelists
I know
got
exactly what you
fired
mean.
by elders. And even today, I mean, it's a thing. It's a big thing.
Absolutely.
Without going I don't wanna spend a half an hour on it, but can you just give some tips on
Whew,
how to
yeah.
develop a healthy relationship between the evangelist who's really focused on the mission and the elders who should be focused on pastoring the flock or shepherding the flock? What's
Yeah.
helped you?
And we've talked a lot about this with our elders and their wives because, I see this too a lot. I mean, there's just a lot of churches that I know of and friends that I have and situations that I hear about, and it just feels like there can be a little bit of whatever you wanna call it, a power struggle or just conflict, and, let me
Absolutely.
be humble, we're only 4.5 years into leading this church and working with this team, so fast forward a little bit more time, and we might have plenty of our own conflict to deal with. Not that we haven't had it over the last 4 years, we're people, we have gaps, they have gaps, and, I think that there's a lot to say, but one of the conversations we've had a lot that I've had a lot with the elders is that sometimes there can be this battle between the elder and the evangelist, who really has the authority. And I think that what we've always talked about is that's kind of like in a marriage. If you're going to argue with your wife and go, who really has the authority? Is it me or is it her in our home and in our family? And if you can use scriptures to try to figure out the answer to that question, but what we kind of have come to believe is if you ever figure out the answer to that question, you've lost.
Right.
Because if the elders come up and they go,
What
we
about
have the authority to, we have the true authority. Well, now you have an evangelist that goes, so am I just a hired preacher on Sundays? And that has an expiration date on it. Or you have the
Right.
evangelist who goes, I have convinced everybody, I have steamrolled everybody that I win. I have the authority.
It's a
Well,
bad fight to win.
yeah, now you got drama on your hands with a group of people that they have the hearts and the ears of and the mandate from God to oversee and shepherd the church, and they don't have your heart. And so
Right.
whenever you answer who has the authority, I think you lose. And to me, it is similar to a marriage. There's the Bible says in Ephesians 5, we have to submit to one another. And I think that there's a give and a take that my elders and I have where they look at me and they go, here's the ball, you're the quarterback. And it was kind of wild. I'm like, these guys are twice my age and they're asking me, hey, what do you want to do? And so I give them a lot of credit for having the faith to trust me and to trust God
Yeah.
and to put it to prayer with God that we're going to put the ball in this guy's hands. And so what do I do with that trust they've given me? Well, I don't, I'm not just some cowboy quarterback.
Right.
I have a great relationship with them and I try to earn that trust that they've given me. I get their advice, I get their help, I get their, I genuinely care about their how they see me and my spirituality. And so I think there's a give and a take there. Now, I would say that I wonder if it's a little easier in my situation because I am half their age. Sometimes I wonder when you have evangelists and elders that are the same age or
Yeah.
close in age, it's maybe there's not an I think sometimes they can look at me and it's a little easier to feel secure with me because they know I'm not trying to dominate them. I'm not trying to lead them. I'm half their age. It's easy for me to be
Right.
a little bit more humble with them and submit to them in some ways. And so I wonder if that makes it a little bit easier, a little bit more of a natural, here's when we're going to give him the authority and here's when I'm going to give them the authority.
Mhm.
Right.
I don't really know, but I wonder that.
We're not quite
Yeah.
half their age. They are not as old as he is
Oh, I'm
painted.
offending people
They are
again.
young and vibrant elders.
I mean, the wives, I don't know how old they are.
They are young, very
The
young.
wives are young. The
That's
elders?
that's
No. I would say too, I mean, I just think you can never get away from humility is like bottom line. And there's definitely things we've had to apologize for. There's
Yeah,
things, there's been a lot of just honesty and apologies when it's needed. I mean, that's just relationships. It's family, right? Like there's going to be things. And I think the thing that we always are needing to fight for, I think even in the new year is it's just easy, even when we first got here, we were together with our elders a lot. Like
right.
we had a lot of time together.
Yeah.
And it was also coming out of COVID. And so we really
We're, like, charting a
prioritized
new
that.
course for the church
Yeah. We
together
were
and
like, oh, we got so much time and it was easier to be consistent. And I think the thing we are always trying to chase now is like, wait a minute, we haven't spent enough time
yeah,
together? And I think that's even like something that he and I feel very cognizant about. And I think they do as well of like, wait a minute. There's just no substitute for time together, but Satan, his first step is to get us so busy and siloed in our own little jobs in the church that we're not unified just with time. And I think that's something that we always are like, we got to get better at that. We need more togetherness?
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, that's
yeah.
very helpful.
I'd
And
love
I'm
you to share
seeing a
about
really
the
good
Ghoman.
dynamic being here in Boston and the relationship between the evangelists and the elders. The elders are super active. There's a lot of mutual respect, a lot of spending time talking over things, and it's really probably one of the healthiest situations I've seen in I don't know how
I
long.
agree.
And it's very, very impressive, but often goes overlooked until things just explode. So it's
Yeah.
fantastic. Okay. I know you've got a great relationship with Stuart Maines, and he speaks really highly of you. What is it about Stu that makes him such a good friend?
This is awesome.
Yay,
Yeah, so
Stu.
oh my goodness, there's so many things. Here's what's popping off my head to begin with. This is just kinda what's coming out off the dome is what makes Stuart a great friend is that he chose me to be his friend.
It's true.
Him and I spoke at a conference together, and he was living in LA, I was living in Boston. We were pretty much doing the same thing, serving in the same type of role, and he would just call me. In LA, you do a lot of driving. So he was in his car a lot. Now, I can never get a hold of the guy these days. No, not
They
never,
talk all
not
the
never.
time. That's so
I just
true.
mean we used to talk 3 times a week back then, but now it's like once every week or 2. But, no, we still probably keep up a good bit. But he was always driving, and I remember after that we met each other, he would just call me. And sometimes I would laugh. I'd look at my phone and see his name, and be like, "Why is this guy calling me again? This guy's always calling me." And then one day it dawned on me, he wants to be my friend. He wants to be close to me. And
Yeah.
maybe that's unique to just me. Maybe that's a guy thing that we can be kind of dense relationally and have a little bit more of a calloused heart with things. For me, I just was like, he at a certain point in time, I went, he cares about me and wants to be close to me and in touch with me. And it taught me a lot about being a good friend to people, just seeing the way that Stuart chose me. So that's just off the dome. One of the things, one of the first things that I loved about my buddy Stuart.
Mm.
Well, I think I bring it up because I recently finished a book by Mel Robbins, and she just talked about how difficult it is as an adult to make friends and how you got to be so intentional about it. And it just struck me because I was talking to Stu, and he shared a little bit about how you guys developed a friendship, and I thought that's a great quality, and it's especially important when you're leading your own church. You can get so isolated, and if you don't try, you're not gonna have a whole bunch of friends, and I think that's a
Mhm.
a great example of someone who just decided, "Okay, I like this guy. I think we've got a lot in common. I'm gonna put the time in to develop the relationship." I think it's something that needs to be
It's so
imitated.
true. I mean, we
Okay,
were going
well
on a cruise one time for a vacation, and he said, "Oh, what cruise are you going on?" Next thing I know, "What room are you guys staying in?" Him and Ashley booked a room right next door to us in this cruise ship, and that was like, our first
you
vacation that we ever
you should
did
have said
together,
no.
and he just put himself out there, and I do think that
He's shameless.
there's something to be
Stuart is
said for
shameless.
you gotta have the security to just put yourself out there with people. I think it's true. A lot of times we just don't wanna do that, and
Uh-huh.
everybody kinda
Exactly,
stays alone until someone puts
exactly.
themselves out there.
That's right. What are your plans for the future? What you have any dreams? What gets you excited when you think about what's up ahead?
Mm.
I feel like I've been talking a lot. You got anything?
Whew.
What are you excited about? What are you dreaming about?
I think it's funny. I think because we've been here now for 4 years, and I feel like we've only just started in a lot of ways. Like I feel like there's still so much to figure out and to learn and to do. And probably some of that is because we had so much life happen in the first 3 years that we were here that it's kind of been like
Right.
a slow emergence from insanity. But I do think like this week, our 8-year-old, like Jessie came out this week and like saw her reading her Bible, my Bible on the couch. She's 8,
She's
and
just sitting there reading First Samuel,
she was like,
a
"Mom, what should I
true
read?"
a true granddaughter of Sam
Yes,
Lang.
exactly. And I think she's doing it because, she knows mom and dad really love the Bible, and so
Sure.
she's not quite even sure what she's reading, I think. But it was a snapshot for me of we have a chance to build a church and build a community of people that my daughter will hopefully get baptized in one day. And
Man,
she's gonna see Jesus, and we get to help paint that picture for her and create, partner with God and with all these other parents and people older than us and younger than us to kind of create this place that hopefully our kids start becoming Christians.
yeah,
And so I think that's like my ultimate dream is that we can pass on that faith. And that's it for sure.
that's
But in
awesome.
terms of like, I don't know, it's hard. He's better at the vision of other things, but that's my main vision.
I love that. I mean, I think I would say the word that God has been putting on my heart a lot recently is multiply. I think that is when I read the scriptures, that's what I see God doing in the New Testament. You see Jesus's ministry multiply. You see then you start to see churches multiplying, and you start to
Mhm.
see even churches in certain areas spreading even more and multiplying. And this morning in my daily time with God, I was just reading Romans where Paul talks about his ambition to preach where Christ is not known. And I guess I always thought of that as he just wanted to go out, he just enjoyed that more than, but he goes on to talk about how, like the scriptures say, that the people who've never seen will understand, and the people who've never heard will know Jesus, and that was just his heart, is he just wanted people who'd never had the chance, never would have the chance, and I just love that idea of just reaching more and more people, and I dream about seeing our church in Charleston multiply. I dream about that for every single church in the world, and
Yeah.
definitely every single church in our global fellowship.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know, I
definitely.
mean, seeing a church for us, we're not there yet, but we're getting to that point where it's like we're gonna be close to doubling the church, you know, as in the next year or 2 as we continue to grow numerically. It's like, what an amazing moment that'll be for me just to know it's possible
Right,
Mm,
that a church can multiply, that a church can double. And then if we send people out or plant other churches, it's not just gonna be one church that's dividing and splitting up into smaller, it's gonna be, no, now these people can go, and what they experienced here,
mm,
they can go and multiply it somewhere else, and you start to see
um,
that really grow and take off, and that's what
yeah,
I dream of, man. I dream of seeing that, and in the end of the day, if Charleston Church of Christ doubles in its membership, is that us really changing the world? No, not yet. Not yet, but that's step 1. For that to happen, that's just the very first thing that's gotta happen before we see God do so many other miracles in our lifetime. So, those are some of the
right,
things that I dream about, and I just feel like God has me where he wants me. I'm
yeah,
learning. Sometimes I feel like I'm in school, where
mm.
God is just
yeah.
teaching me
Yeah.
as a young evangelist. Maybe I'm not a young evangelist anymore. We just appointed our campus minister, John Crawford, we just appointed him an evangelist, a couple months ago, and so I'm like, "Well, if he's the young evangelist, I guess that makes me the old evangelist now," which is wild to think about, but, those are some of the things I think about and I dream about
That's
seeing
awesome.
God do.
I love your vision. I just think about that myself. I just think, wouldn't it be awesome just to see, I prayed about it this morning, just that God would use me to help plant 50 more churches before I die, before 20, 50 by 2050. That'd be amazing. Just not that I would plant them personally, but at least help encourage, inspire, equip. I mean, that's kind of what this podcast
Yeah.
is about and the books that I write. I want to encourage people to go, hey, you can do it. And wouldn't it be awesome to saturate the country and the world with churches in every small town, every place? I mean, there's just
Wow.
so much room for growth. There's so many people that are disconnected from God. They're disconnected from a church. And if there was a church, no matter what size in their neighborhood, they'd probably go and they could be impacted. So I hope
Mm.
that your vision comes true, and I'm praying for you, and I think that's a great vision. Just to close it out, what advice would you give to a person who wants to make this life count?
Mm.
Isn't that the tagline of your whole podcast?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
I saw that when I was looking on there. I love that question. I don't know why my mind is going here. I thought ahead of time of some of them, but then I thought, let me just be in the moment when you ask this one and just see what God puts on the.
That's good.
So I didn't even think about this one. I
Be in
thought,
the
let's just
moment.
see where it goes. And here's where my mind is going right now. I think about Alexandra's dad, Sam, and the legacy that he had. You know, how do you make your life count? I think that's a guy who really made his life count. And one of the movies that Sam and I used to love, we both loved this movie. It's called Jerry Maguire.
Oh,
And
yes,
Jerry
love it.
Maguire is all
We did
about,
love
it's
it.
the story of a guy who he says, "I didn't like my place in this world." And he was successful by so many people's standards. And
Right.
it's not, the movie is not about him being a Christian. It's just about in this life feeling like you're succeeding, you're getting everything that everybody says you should want, and yet he didn't like his place in the world. And there's this mentor, his mentor, Dickie Fox, has all these quotes randomly through the movie where it kind of is like a callback to something that his mentor told him that he's learning throughout the movie. And and the movie ends with him saying, Dickie Fox, he says, I don't know everything, but I love my life, I love my wife, and I wish you my kind of success. And then the movie fades out to, Bob Dylan's "Shelter from the Storm," which is one of my all-time favorite songs. I mean, it's just, like, such a great ending to a movie, and I used to talk t with Sam about that line because I always felt like Sam could have written that line.
Yeah.
Sam was a guy who he loved his life, and he loved God, and he loved being a disciple of Jesus, and he
Mhm.
loved his wife. And,
Yeah.
if you don't have a wife, you could say it could be your children, it could be your friends, it could be your loved ones, that you love the people that God has put around you. Your friends,
Mhm.
your family, that you
Right.
cherish those relationships, and I think that's the key to success, loving God, loving the people that he's put in your life. I
Mhm.
think if you do that, great things you're gonna find yourself down the road in a place where God wants you to be. And as someone
Right.
who, when I was a young man, felt like my life is falling apart. My family is
Right.
falling apart. My life is just chaos. Where is this road
Mm.
gonna lead? Having no idea. I feel like God had a lot of grace and mercy on me, and he helped me to be someone that had great people in his life who loved him and I loved them back, whether it's Alexandra or the Stewarts or mentors that he's put in my life, like Kevin Miller, who is up with you in Boston. I've had some really great relationships that I cherish and I hold dear, and I've just decided I'm gonna hold close to God and cherish my life, living my life for Jesus, and the road that has led me down, I couldn't have written it any better. I
Mm.
couldn't have
That's
written
awesome.
the story, and I know there'll be more valleys like we've been going through this last season. I know there will be more, but he's already led me through them, so I'm not that worried about the future valleys. I
Right.
just feel grateful,
Yep.
but
Ooh, I don't know if I can top that one. That's a good one. I think I would echo all those same things. I mean, I think yeah, I think the people, when you think about making life count, you think about the people who've gone before you whose life counted to you, and when I think about some of those people, whether it was, Jesse's stepdad who laid down his life for his family. He married a single mom that had 2 kids and he just provided for them and he was just a faithful man. And I think that's making your life count. And he loved people and he wasn't in the ministry. He hated his job every day. He
but you did
loved
it.
his wife, he loved us, and he was faithful. And,
Mm.
I think about my dad and I think about, Wyndham Shaw, who I adored, and think about my grandmother, who our daughter's named after, so many different people. And all of those people, in whatever spot God had them, they laid down their lives for others. They poured out. And I think when I think about making my life count, it is pouring out myself for the people that matter and for God, right? And I do think now, and this is the thing I appreciate the most now looking back with my dad, is I think I'm a preacher's kid through and through, and there's a lot of preacher's kids that I think at times the MO, like, can be, like, my parents put ministry, like, our family was on the altar when it came to ministry, and that is the thing my dad was never willing to do. He
Oh,
would always tell us, "Anybody can lead this church. Other people can lead this church. Nobody else can be a dad to my kids except me." And to this day, that faith that he had, it makes me wanna follow Jesus more because I know that's the kind of he loved us enough to even put his own ambition to say, even his spiritual
Yep.
ambition to go, "No, no, that is never going to be above my devotion to God's word and the role God has me in as your father and as my wife's husband," and all of that. And I think that to me is how you make your life count is you have to have the right priorities. That means
right.
God first, but sometimes it definitely means us second. It definitely means ourselves last. And but I think in every stage of life, right, that list gets mixed up. And we have to
Mm.
rearrange and go, okay, how do I make Jesus Lord all over again? And do it the right way. And it can be a bit of a moving target, can it? So, I think
Yeah.
that's the thing that I'm always trying to figure out and that I know we are gonna be fighting for forever.
That's that's great. Thank you so much. You guys, thank you for your time today. It's really great to talk to you, to get to know you, really respect your work. and your family and what God is doing through you. Just want to wish you all the best.
Thank you,
Thank you, man. I
Rob.
love what
Thanks
you
for all
do.
you're doing. You're a hero to
Thank
us.
Absolutely.
Thanks. And thanks for listening. Here's how you can help support the program. First of all, let your friends know about the podcast. Secondly, go to my website, robskinner.com, and sign up for my newsletter that I'm going to be starting soon. I want to keep in better touch with my listeners and send them an encouraging email every week. So please go to robskinner.com because my goal is to inspire you to make this life count, live a no regrets life, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day and make this life count.